Inside your body, billions of microscopic cells are constantly passing messages. Some of those messages help you notice light, sound, pressure, heat, pain, balance, hunger, and emotion. Others help you move a finger, blink, speak, swallow, or pull your hand away from something hot before you have consciously thought about it. The cells behind this communication system are neurons, also called nerve cells. A neuron is not just another biological building block. It is a specialized living cell designed to receive information, process it, and pass it onward. What makes neurons remarkable is that they are excitable. They can create fast electrical signals known as action potentials. These signals move through networks in the nervous system, especially the brain and spinal cord, allowing animals to react to the world and coordinate complex behavior. In a sense, neurons are the cellular language of sensation, movement, and thought. Neurons are found in nervous tissue throughout the animal kingdom, with a few simple exceptions such as sponges and placozoans. Plants and fungi do not have nerve cells in the same sense, even though they can respond to their environment in other ways. The appearance of electrically signaling cells was a major evolutionary turning point. Molecular evidence suggests that the ability to generate electrical signals began hundreds of millions of years ago, roughly 700 to 800 million years in the past. Early predecessors of neurons may have resembled secretory cells that released peptide-like chemical messengers. Over time, these cells gained new genetic tools, including ion channels and molecular structures that helped organize communication between cells. That combination made it possible to send signals quickly, reliably, and directionally. Once cells could communicate in this faster way, nervous systems could become more coordinated, opening the door to movement, sensing, and eventually complex brains. Although neurons are specialized, they still share many features with ordinary cells. A neuron has a cell body, often called the soma, which contains the nucleus and the machinery needed to keep the cell alive. It has mitochondria for energy, Golgi bodies for packaging molecules, and many of the same internal systems found in other cells. But neurons also have distinct extensions that make them uniquely suited for communication. Dendrites branch outward from the cell body, often like the limbs of a tree, creating a large surface area for receiving signals. The axon is usually a longer projection that carries outgoing signals away from the soma. Some axons are very short, while others can stretch surprisingly far. In humans, certain axons may reach close to a meter in length, connecting the spinal cord to distant muscles. This shape gives neurons the ability to link distant parts of the body into one coordinated communication system. The flow of information in a typical neuron follows a general pattern. Signals often arrive through the dendrites or the cell body. These incoming signals can push the neuron closer to firing, or they can make firing less likely. The neuron constantly integrates these competing inputs, almost like a tiny biological decision point. If the combined electrical change is strong enough and happens quickly enough, the neuron triggers an action potential. This begins near a region called the axon hillock, a specialized area where the axon leaves the cell body. From there, the signal travels down the axon toward its terminals. Importantly, this is not a weak signal that fades away like a whisper moving down a hallway. An action potential is an all-or-nothing pulse. Once triggered, it is regenerated along the axon, allowing the message to travel rapidly and maintain its strength over distance. The electrical side of neuronal signaling depends on voltage differences across the cell membrane. The inside and outside of a neuron contain charged particles, especially ions such as sodium, potassium, calcium, and chloride. The neuron uses its membrane and specialized channels to maintain a voltage gradient, meaning the electrical charge inside the cell differs from the outside. When incoming signals change this voltage enough, ion channels open and close in a highly coordinated sequence. Sodium ions may rush in, making the inside more positive, followed by changes that restore the membrane toward its resting state. This rapid shift creates the action potential. It is called electrochemical because it depends on both electricity and chemistry, electrical voltage changes are produced by chemical ions moving through molecular gates. This makes the neuron fast, but also deeply biological, constantly using energy to reset and maintain its signaling ability. At the end of the axon are axon terminals, and this is where one neuron can influence another cell. The connection point is called a synapse. In many synapses, the electrical signal does not simply jump directly from one neuron to the next. Instead, when an action potential reaches the terminal, it triggers the release of tiny amounts of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These chemicals cross a narrow gap known as the synaptic cleft and bind to receptors on the target cell. That target might be another neuron, a muscle cell, or a gland cell. The receiving cell then changes its own activity in response. This chemical step may seem slower than direct electricity, but it gives the nervous system flexibility. Different neurotransmitters and receptors can create different effects, allowing signals to be strengthened, weakened, shaped, filtered, or modified according to context. Not every synaptic signal has the same meaning. Some signals are excitatory, making the receiving neuron more likely to fire its own action potential. Others are inhibitory, making firing less likely. This balance is essential. A brain made only of excitation would become chaotic, with signals spreading uncontrollably. A brain dominated by inhibition would become silent and unresponsive. Normal nervous system function depends on the constant push and pull between these forces. A neuron may receive thousands of incoming synaptic contacts, each one slightly shifting its voltage. The cell body and dendrites act as an integration zone, adding up signals over time and space. If the total effect crosses the threshold, the neuron fires. If not, it remains quiet. This simple principle, repeated across huge networks, allows the nervous system to make decisions, refine movement, recognize patterns, and control attention. Neurons can be classified by function, and one major type is the sensory neuron. Sensory neurons are the bridge between the outside world and the nervous system. They respond to stimuli such as touch, sound, light, temperature, stretch, and chemical changes. A sensory neuron connected to the skin might respond when pressure bends or distorts its membrane. A neuron involved in vision may respond indirectly to light detected by specialized cells in the eye. Once activated, sensory neurons send information toward the spinal cord and brain, where the signals can be interpreted. The experience you call reality begins as patterns of activity in these cells. The nervous system does not receive the world as complete images or finished sensations. It receives coded signals, and the brain constructs perception from those streams of neural information. Motor neurons do almost the opposite job. Instead of carrying information from the world into the nervous system, they carry commands outward. Motor neurons receive signals from the brain and spinal cord and use them to control muscles and glands. When you decide to raise your hand, speak a word, or take a step, motor pathways translate intention into action. A motor neuron can connect to muscle fibers, and when it activates them, the muscle contracts. This is how electrical signaling becomes physical movement. Motor neurons also participate in reflexes, where the spinal cord can produce rapid responses without waiting for a full conscious decision from the brain. That speed is protective. If you touch something painfully hot, motor circuits can pull your hand back quickly, while your conscious awareness of pain follows just after. A third important group is the interneuron. Interneurons connect neurons to other neurons within the brain or spinal cord. They are often the hidden processors of the nervous system. Instead of directly sensing the outside world or directly moving muscles, interneurons shape the flow of information inside neural circuits. They can compare signals, coordinate timing, dampen activity, amplify patterns, and link one part of a circuit to another. Many interneurons are inhibitory, which makes them crucial for precision. For example, movement requires not only activating the right muscles, but also relaxing opposing muscles at the right moment. Perception requires emphasizing useful signals while suppressing noise. Interneurons help make that possible. Without them, neural activity would be less organized, less selective, and far less capable of supporting complex behavior. When neurons connect functionally, they form neural circuits. A circuit can be simple, involving only a few neurons in a reflex pathway, or astonishingly complex, involving vast networks across multiple brain regions. The key point is that neurons rarely act alone. Their power comes from patterns of connection. A single neuron firing might mean very little by itself. But millions of neurons firing in coordinated sequences can represent a sound, guide a movement, retrieve a memory, or maintain attention on a goal. Synapses are also adjustable, which means circuits can change with experience. Learning does not usually require creating an entirely new brain structure from scratch. Instead, it often involves changing the strength, timing, and organization of connections that already exist. This plasticity is one reason nervous systems can adapt to new environments and behaviors. Most neurons are generated during development by neural stem cells. During brain development and childhood, enormous numbers of neurons form, migrate, extend axons and dendrites, and build synaptic connections. This process is guided by genes, chemical signals, activity, and experience. In most areas of the adult brain, large-scale neurogenesis mostly stops, although some limited neuron formation may continue in specific regions depending on the species and context. This makes early development especially important, because the nervous system is building the cellular foundation for later function. But adult brains are not fixed machines. Even when new neuron production is limited, existing neurons can still change their connections, alter synaptic strength, and reorganize circuits. In practical terms, the adult nervous system remains adaptable, but it works largely by reshaping communication among cells rather than constantly replacing them. The neuron is powerful because it combines structure, electricity, chemistry, and networking into one living communication unit. Its dendrites receive, its soma integrates, its axon transmits, and its synapses influence other cells. Sensory neurons bring information in, motor neurons send commands out, and interneurons transform signals inside the central nervous system. Action potentials make messages fast, neurotransmitters make communication flexible, and circuits make simple signals meaningful. From an evolutionary perspective, the ability to generate electrical signals gave animals a new way to coordinate life. From a human perspective, neurons are the basis of perception, movement, learning, and thought. Every memory, reflex, decision, and sensation depends on these tiny electric messengers working together. They are microscopic cells, but together they create the living networks that allow an organism to experience and respond to the world. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.